Sinister secrets of the haunted, 10 spine-chilling true stories revealed in the sound of rain. The rain fell heavily, a relentless torrent drumming against Claire's new home, echoing ominously through the creaking walls. She squinted at the flickering light bulb overhead, its feeble glow casting eerie shadows that twisted and curled into the nooks of the room. Something felt wrong, too wrong. Emmett and Lily, blissfully unaware, played quietly in the corner, but Claire sensed a dark presence lurking just beyond her perception. Was it the stress of her divorce? Or the overwhelming weight of a new beginning? Claire's heart raced. When the whispers first pierced the calming sound of raindrops, it shocked her into stillness. A soft, threadbare voice seemed to call her name from deep within the walls, coaxing her to lean closer, to listen more intently, but she quickly shook the feeling off, pushing the creeping dread aside. The previous owner had warned her a storm, he'd said, had taken everything. Claire thought he was talking about the roof, but she was beginning to think he meant something much darker. Then there were the shadows. Quick, fleeting movements darted just out of her line of sight, always leaving her questioning her eyes. She'd catch a glimpse of something behind her and turn, only to find the hallway dim and still. Lily giggled, pointing at a corner where a shadow flickered as if participating in their games. A chill ran down Claire's spine, but she forced a smile, dismissing it as the children's vivid imagination. But it didn't escape her that the more rain fell, the more peculiar sensations wrapped around her like a damp blanket. With each passing hour, Claire found herself enamored yet unnerved not by her new community, so full of welcoming smiles, but by the homes that surrounded her. The way the neighbors glanced sideways from their tidy lawns, exchanging hushed whispers whenever she passed. Their faces were blank canvases, but their eyes told a different story. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The power outages became frequent, darkness enveloping their home in sheer terror that felt alive. One night, Claire woke to the sound of laughter, soft, chilling laughter, almost childlike. It was piercing and haunting, drifting through the rain-soaked air, threading through her dreams like a slippery whisper. She bolted upright, adrenaline pumping, heart pounding. Emmett? Lily? She called out, only to realize they slept soundly, untouched by the fear that clutched her throat. Now, with her mind racing, she felt an inexplicable pull toward the abandoned house at the end of the street, a place that had become a ghost in its own right, devoid of life but rich in malevolence. The children played near it, drawn to its secrets, exploring its crumbling facade and overgrown garden, while Claire shivered, swallowing back the panic. What was it hiding? What had happened here? The sheer thought sent jitters down her spine, but still, the whisper continued to weave a web of dark intrigue around her. As the rain fell heavier, the urge to uncover the truth grew, a storm of questions churning inside her. But each answer revealed more layers of deception, more threads of the community's dark past. Claire felt that the shadows were closing in, tightening their grip. The rain transformed from a soothing lullaby into a fierce forewarning. She stood on the precipice of a swirling darkness, a heartbeat away from a revelation that could change everything, until the air shifted, and for the first time, she heard it clearly, her name, spoken. Softly, but with an alarming familiarity. Claire's breath caught, the familiar sound of her name echoing unnaturally in the gloom. It flitted through her mind like a ghost, evoking a memory she couldn't quite grasp. She felt her skin prickling, an old fear awakening. There was no imagination at play, this was visceral and raw. Claire. The voice came again, almost a caress but laden with something sinister, an echo of despair woven in. It seeped through the walls, curling around her like vines intent on dragging her down. She looked back at her children, their innocence a stark contrast to the encroaching dread. They remained undisturbed, engrossed in their make-believe worlds, while she stood on the edge of reality. That night, sleep eluded her, each creak of the house wide awake in the dark reminding her of the tales she dismissed. The previous owner's words loomed large. Something had been taken away. What had that storm unearthed? What had it swallowed? The rain lashed against the windows, harmonizing with the persistent whispers that danced along the roofline. Claire's mind spiraled, weaving through the memories of the house, the way it had felt upon first entering. The living room, though small, had an inviting warmth, but now it was a prison, walls bearing witness to untold tales. With dawn approaching, she clenched her fists, making a decision. She would confront the shadows, unearth whatever lay dormant within the house. As the first light of morning trickled in, Claire gathered her courage. She moved to the abandoned house down the street, her heart hammering a relentless rhythm against her chest. Each step toward the decrepit structure felt weighted, each squelch of mud beneath her foot resonated ominously. She stood before it, windows dark and lifeless, like eyes waiting to swallow her whole. Stepping inside was like crossing a threshold into a realm of nightmares. Dust danced in the air, swirling in eddies created by her entrance. The floor groaned beneath her, and a wave of unease washed over her with every creak and shadow. The interior felt empty yet alive, a tension humming in the air. She hoped to find clues, remnants of the lives once lived here. Instead, she stumbled upon remnants of despair. Torn photographs littered the floor, their smiles faded into obscurity, laughter long gone. Claire picked one up, her own face staring back, a younger version of herself, visiting before the storm. The memory crashed against her like a wave. She had accompanied a friend years ago, unaware that fate would lead her back here. With a deep breath, she pressed on, exploring the cramped corners, where dark stains marred the walls. Whispers slithered around her, urging her to leave, but her mind was set. What secrets were embedded in this place? Did they hold the answers to her fears or her downfall? As if summoned by her thoughts, a sudden blast of wind rushed through the broken windows, extinguishing the dim light. Darkness poured in, an icy grip stripping her of warmth, leaving only the frantic beat of her heart. Fear clawed at her insides, urging flight, but she pushed forward. Suddenly, she froze. In the shadows at the far end of the room, a figure emerged, barely more than a silhouette. Raindrops dripped from the remnants of the roof like the steady drip of blood. Claire squinted. Was it real or another trick of her fraying mind? Who is there? The figure tilted its head, and from the depths of the darkness, the voice seeped once more. Claire, her breath faltered as the figure stepped forward, its face becoming clearer and more horrifying. In that instant, she realized she wasn't just uncovering secrets. She was drawing closer to her own, shadows swirling with the storm above. What awaited her, hidden behind the tempest? Claire's pulse quickened as the silhouette approached, its features obscured by the darkness, yet an unmistakable familiarity clawed at her gut. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, the darkness thickening, suffocating. Please, she tried to steady her voice, but it wavered, betraying her fear. Who are you? Claire. The voice came closer, distinct yet haunting, a childhood memory twisting into a nightmare. It was her own voice, altered, like a cruel parody of innocence. The figure paused in the gloom, revealing a face that twisted her stomach into knots. It was distorted, a shadow of Claire's own visage, yet something shadowed its eyes, a darkness that felt hungry. Stay back. Claire's instinct screamed as she took a step backward, her boot slipping on the slick floor beneath her. Her breath hitched. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it grinned, a horrifying rictus stretching across its face. Rain continued to lash against the broken windows, and in the frigid silence, Claire could hear the steady drip of water pooling somewhere unseen, rhythmic like a heartbeat. Then it lunged forward. Claire barely skidded out of the way, adrenaline surging through her veins. She flew toward the door, aware of the figure moving with uncanny speed, shadows cloaking it like a cloak of dread. No, no. She gasped, fear-tasting bile rising in her throat. With frantic urgency, she pushed the door, praying that the ancient hinges would yield. The door creaked loudly as she shoved it open, stumbling into the rain-soaked street. Cold droplets pelted her as she scrambled to her feet. The air felt electric, a tension that made her skin prickle. Glancing back, she saw the figure still lingering in the gloom, half illuminated by the weak light filtering through the door. It extended an arm, beckoning as if inviting her back into its world. "Run, Claire!" The command felt primal, erupting from somewhere deep within her as though the voice had come from the house itself. She tore herself away, adrenaline thrumming in her ears. As she hurtled down the desolate street, the old stories whispered in her mind, the girl who vanished, the parents who never found her, were they tied to this cursed place, the rain soaked her through, the cold wrapping around her like chains. She sprinted toward home, her heart racing with every pounding step, a relentless drum echoing the terror that fluttered in her chest. But the shadow didn't chase her, not directly. Instead, it loomed over her thoughts, melding into her fears, threatening to engulf her once more. Reaching her front porch, she paused, panting, as her hands gripped the railing, grounding herself. Inside, her children played, blissfully unaware of the darkness trailing her. They were safe for now. But deep down, Claire knew that whatever was inside that house was hungry. The knowledge burned like fire in her gut. There were truths buried not just in the old home, but within her as well, and her children. They were tethered to this curse, irrevocably drawn to its call. As she stood there, trying to catch her breath, a sudden understanding struck. The voice hadn't just called her name, it knew her. "What have you taken?" she whispered, the storm above echoing her despair, but the answer remained elusive, an echo lost in the chaos. The shadows would return, and they would come for everything she loved. What lay in wait for her when she dared to uncover the truth? Who had sent her crashing into this darkness, and at what cost? The rain intensified as the winds howled like tormented spirits, waiting, watching. Claire felt an undeniable pull towards the darkness again. This was not over. Not yet. Would she dare to step back into the abyss? Claire staggered back, breath hitching in her throat as the weight of the night bore down on her. Every shadow seemed to breathe, every droplet of rain clung like an omen. She swallowed hard, thoughts racing as she fought the urge to turn back and confront whatever was lurking behind her, whatever had taken on her face, twisted into something grotesque. It was as if she had met a version of herself that had been mourning some old, dark secret. Tremors of dread coursed through her, but her children were safe inside. She needed to trust that they were shielded from the chaos threatening the world outside. Yet, the visions of shadowy hands reaching through the window, grasping for them, haunted her thoughts. The storm was a reminder, a dreadful symphony that drummed on her skull. As Claire stepped inside, the warmth of the living room wrapped around her, a stark contrast to the tempestuous night. The laughter of her children flowed like music, soothing but distant. She tried to focus on their joy as they crafted silly stories with construction paper. But the echo of her own name whispered through her mind, taunting. "Mommy!" Eden, her youngest, called out, eyes shining with innocent thrill. "Look at what we made." Claire forced a smile, approaching the coffee table where a colorful mess lay sprawled. But reality twisted. The faintest flicker of movement in the corner of her eye sent chills down her spine. She turned abruptly, scanning the dimly lit corners of the room. Nothing. "Mommy, are you okay?" Ewan, her oldest, asked. The concern etched in his brow mirrored her own turmoil. He was too perceptive for his age, picking up the remnants of her fears that flickered like shadows behind her eyes. "Just tired," she replied, forcing lightness into her voice. "You two should get ready for bed." As they shuffled off, Claire's breath quickened. Alone, she crept toward the window, rain tracing paths down the glass, blurring the outside world. She peered into the storm, half expecting to see the grim figure lurking nearby. The darkness whispered secrets she couldn't quite grasp, secrets that caused the hairs on her arms to stand at attention. With determination, she pulled out her phone. Should she call someone? The past few days had been surreal. Every night had morphed into a blend of terror and uncertainty, like a nightmare that refused to fade come morning light. Just as she was about to dial a number, an unsettling sound broke the stillness. From the kitchen, a thump. Her heart dropped, panic igniting like wildfire. She tiptoed toward the source, the wood floor creaking with every careful step. The eerie silence pressed against her ears, making each breath feel like a betrayal. "Hello?" she called, a tremor in her voice. No response. The shadows danced, flickering from the kitchen light as she approached slowly. It was almost mocking her courage. She pushed the door open and gasped. The kitchen was empty except for an unsettling chill that clawed at her skin, scratching along the surface. Her heartbeat pulsed loud, the fear festering inside her. Was it just the storm? Or was something watching her from the darkness? Then she noticed it. A small drawing on the table, hastily sketched, almost childlike in its simplicity. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. The figure depicted was an outline of a person, twisted, dark eyes glaring back, a smile stretching unnaturally wide. Beneath it was a single word, "Why?" Panic surged as she spun around. The door swung softly behind her, the sound almost deafening compared to the echoes of the rain. She felt it, a presence, a cruel malice swirling in the air. Claire, the voice, once familiar, now grated in her ears. She staggered back. The rain poured harder outside, drowning out the whispers, but she knew they were still there, ever closer, ever watching. What had been awakened? Why did it want her? As she glanced back at the drawing, realization dawned. This wasn't merely a tormentor. It was a harbinger, warning her that something was coming, a shadow eager to consume her very essence. Determined to protect her children at all costs, Claire clenched the drawing in her fist. The night wasn't done with her, and she knew that stepping beyond the threshold of safety would plunge her deeper into the abyss. But she had to fight. She had to uncover the truth. What haunting revelation awaited her next? Claire's heart raced, adrenaline pumping through her veins as she clutched the drawing. The word "why" echoed in her mind, a question that twisted inside her. What did it mean? Why was she being targeted? The shadows closed in around her, thick and oppressive. She felt the air grow heavy, saturated with something sinister, as if the house itself was alive and watching. Before she could gather her thoughts, the power flickered. The kitchen plunged into darkness, the lights wheezing and sputtering before a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the room for a brief moment. In that instant, she saw something. A shape, formed in the flicker of light, standing still at the far end of the room. Claire's breath caught in her throat. "Mommy?" Ewan's voice pierced through the tension, shaky and filled with confusion from the hallway. "Stay there," she commanded, her voice sharper than she intended. She needed to protect them. She couldn't let fear shackle her movements, but instinct propelled her forward, closer to the shadow that now shifted, elongated, and disappeared as quickly as it had come. With a shaky breath, she turned her back on the void and rushed towards the children's room, where she could hear them whispering now, both alarmed and afraid. "Mommy!" Eden wailed, her small body trembling with fright as Claire rushed in. "Is it coming for us?" "It's okay, sweetheart," Claire said, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than assurance. She embraced both of her children, grounding herself in their warmth. "Just a storm. Just a storm." The wind howled as if in protest, rattling the window panes. Claire held them tighter, her mind racing back to the drawing, the voice. Every fiber of her being urged her to flee, to escape. But in that moment, a mother's love battled fiercely against the beckoning terror. Still, something deep inside her churned. She couldn't ignore it. "Ewan, did you hear that noise in the kitchen?" she asked, trying to project calmness. He nodded, his brow furrowing. "It sounded like someone was there." "I'll check," Claire replied, steeling herself. "You and Eden stay here. Lock the door behind me." "No, Mommy. Don't go," Eden cried, her hands grappling at Claire's shirt. "It's not safe here if I don't." "I'll be right back," she insisted, eyes narrowing. She exhaled sharply, wanting nothing more than to convince them both, but the uncertainties had taken root firmly in her thoughts, leaving their embrace felt like entering a void. Claire left the sanctuary of her children, heart pounding like drumbeats in a haunting melody. She crept toward the kitchen, the shadows twisting and turning in ways that defied logic. With a swift breath, she swung open the door again. The darkness yawned, and the chill rushed to engulf her. It felt almost sentient, lapping at her ankles, hissing secrets she could almost understand. Emma's inclusion was silenced by the rumble of thunder. She took a step inside. The drawing remained on the table, taunting her. An unsettling sensation tightened around her throat as she noticed a few more hastily scrawled images scattered across the countertops. Each piece depicted the same dark figure, closer, more defined than before, the smile even wider, the eyes now dull and consuming. Terror rippled through her. They were not random. They were messages. But from whom? A sound snapped her from her thoughts, a soft laughter, the kind laughter that echoed inside her own home, but now twisted and foreign. Claire. The voice hissed again, closer this time. She whipped around, but it was too late. The room plunged into complete darkness again, but with the newfound panic rippling through her, Claire could feel a presence behind her, a heaviness that bore down. "Mommy!" The faint wail cut through the air. It was Eden. Fear overwhelmed Claire, and she lunged back toward the children. As she reached the hallway, the floorboards creaked ominously beneath her weight. But as she moved, the shadows shifted, snaking away to reveal a knife resting on the table, gleaming as if in invitation. Why was it there? Who had placed it? There, with a racing heart, Claire hesitated, a vision sparking in the corner of her mind. What if this was the answer to the chaos? But was it truly the answer she sought, or another step deeper into despair? Time thickened as the storm raged on. She needed to uncover the truth, needed to face her fears, before whatever was coming truly arrived. What awaited her beyond the darkness, hidden in the folds of her own home? The hallway felt like a tunnel, closing in on Claire as she raced towards her children. The oppressive darkness clung to her like a shroud, each step echoing ominously as if the house itself were mocking her efforts. "Mommy!" Eden cried again as Claire burst into the room. The flicker of the lightning outside cast ghostly shapes through the window, barely illuminating the frightened faces of her children. "Ewan! Eden! I'm here!" Claire shouted, the sharpness in her voice breaking like glass in the stillness. She swept them both into her arms, feeling their small bodies tremble against her, and it felt like grounding herself to the solid earth in a storm of chaos. "Lock the door," she urged, her voice a frantic whisper. Ewan scrambled to obey, fumbling with the lock as Claire held Eden tightly. The wind shrieked outside, and the rain pounded against the old roof like 1,000 fists. As the storm raged, the air thickened around them. "What about the drawing, Mommy?" Ewan whispered, his wide eyes shining with fear in the dimness. "What drawing?" Claire's heart raced, panic bubbling beneath the surface. "The one by the kitchen. The one with the monster." Her breath hitched. Had she just imagined it before? No, the drawing was real. It was taunting her all over again. "Ewan, focus," she said, trying to steady her thoughts. "It's just a storm." But even as she said it, she felt the truth slip away from her grasp, like sand in the wind. Eden's trembling widened. "But what if the monster comes? What if it comes for us?" Just as Claire opened her mouth to reassure her, the shadows in the room twisted unnaturally. The darkness in the corners shimmered, writhing like a live thing, and the silence that followed seemed to pull at the very threads of her sanity. Instinctively, she twisted to look back at the door, nearly blinding herself as another lightning flash filled the room. For a split second, she swore she saw the figure lurking just behind them, still and sinister, its smirk wider than ever. "Mommy!" Ewan yelled again, gripping her arm tightly. "I see it. I see it!" Claire exclaimed, her heart thundering in her chest as she felt something brush against her leg, cold, slick, not of this world. She couldn't find breath to scream. "Get behind me!" she shouted, shoving the children toward the closet. The door creaked, the shadows of the hallway swallowing everything behind it. The flickering light bulb overhead sputtered, bathing the room in a blood-red hue. The laughter erupted again, twisting, turning into a sinister cackle that echoed off the walls. The knife. It had appeared in her mind cluttered with memories, a pathway leading to old family secrets better left buried. What if the past had come back to haunt them? "Mama, we have to get out of here," Eden wailed, her voice splitting through the air with sharpness that stung Claire's ears. "Yes. Yes," Claire said, shaking her head, trying to clear her thoughts. She mustered every ounce of courage, her arms were heavy with dread, but she couldn't let the darkness win. "We're going to be okay." But just as she opened the closet door to usher them in, a shattering cry echoed throughout the house, a piercing scream that felt both familiar and foreign. It came from outside, and in that moment, a premonition washed over her. "Don't look!" Claire shouted as a whirlwind of shadows swept around them. The room warped and the air crackled like static, heralding a presence that was not alone. "What is happening?" Ewan's voice trembled, she couldn't answer. Fear clenched her throat as she struggled for control, knowing that whatever it was closing in on her family, but then, glancing at that glint of silver on the table, the knife. What if it was the key to their survival, or would it be a tool for doom? With determination mixed with dread, Claire prepared to confront the darkness that had seeped into their lives, willing to uncover the truth behind the monster and end this horror. What revelation would she uncover? Would it free them, or doom them all? As the shadows pressed in closer, she sensed this was only the beginning. The air felt thick, almost electric, as Claire gripped the knife, its cold handle grounding her amidst the chaos. The laughter, haunting and terrible, bounced off the walls, chilling her to the core. It was no longer just a storm outside, it had transformed into a tempest of inner turmoil and uncertainty. "Mommy, I'm scared," Eden cried, her voice high-pitched and trembling. Claire pressed a finger against her lips, shushing her gently. "I know, sweetheart. We need to be very quiet." The shadows loomed, stretching like jagged fingers across the room. Each surge of wind outside seemed to echo the laughter, crescendoing into a cacophony that threatened to consume them. With every lightning flash, Claire could see the corners of the room grow darker, amplifying her dread. Whatever lingered there was feeding off their fear. "Mommy, let us go," Ewan pleaded, his small body shaking as he held on to Eden. "Please." The knife felt heavier, its weight pulling her thoughts in all directions. What secrets did it hold? Memories and traumas long left forgotten rushed back like a rushing tide. In a moment of clarity, she remembered the family stories. The ones whispered by her grandmother at night, how fear and darkness could awaken old monsters. "Stay close to me," she barked, echoing her resolve. As if mocking her determination, a deep rumble of thunder cracked overhead, and the lights flickered violently before plunging them into utter darkness. Claire could almost feel the shadows coiling around her, malice radiating from their unseen cores. Instinctively, she turned around, knife poised, ready to strike at anything that approached. Then, a soft rustling, like extra fingers trailing through the air, sent a bolt of ice through her veins. Her breath quickened as she strained to hear, every fiber of her being alert. "What was that?" she hissed, eyeing the closet. "And maybe it's just the wind," Ewan suggested, though even he sounded hesitant. "Just the wind," Claire repeated, but the words tasted bitter on her tongue. Suddenly, the closet door creaked open wider, the shadows pouring out toward her. Claire lunged forward, preparing to swipe at whatever might emerge. In that instant, two small hands squeezed tightly around her waist. "Don't go, Mom." Eden trembled, gripping Claire like a lifeline. "Stay with me," Claire yelled, feeling her heart thumping like a drum in her chest. Then, the familiar sound of footsteps echoed through the darkness, heavy and deliberate. They felt hauntingly close, like a taunting reminder of what had come before. Claire glimpsed the faintest outline of a figure through the dimness, tall, imposing, as if reality itself had twisted to allow it to be there. No, no, she breathed. The figure leaned down, and with a voice smooth as silk, it whispered, "You were always meant to find me." Terror shot through Claire as icy recognition washed over her. The drawing. The monster. This entity was her past, clawing its way back, unwilling to be forgotten. Desperate images of her childhood splashed through her mind, fearful sketches hidden away, warnings never heeded. "Why are you here?" Claire screamed into the abyss, her voice cracking. The laughter erupted again, engulfing her like a tittle, drowning her resolve. "Because you left me behind." A vision blared in her mind, the final confrontation with her own demons, the secrets entrenched in her family. The lurid tales that echoed through generations were now more than just stories, they were truths come to life, gnashing their teeth, craving acceptance. "Ewan! Eden!" she shouted, her voice raw. "This is our chance. We need to fight." Suddenly, the room surged with chaos. Everything whirled into a maelstrom of sound and fury, the monster closing in, but what could they fight with? The knife? Their voices? Their memories? Clutching her children close, fear clashing against resolve, Claire braced herself for what lay ahead. The time to face their fears had come, but was she strong enough to save them all? As she swung the knife in defiance against the approaching darkness, the walls echoed back a question that filled her with dread: what are you willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? The moment the knife cut through the air, the shadows recoiled, momentarily surprised. Claire's heart hammered in her chest, each beat a deafening drum in the overwhelming silence that followed. The laughter hung heavy in the air, a grotesque symphony mocking her bravery. Thunder rumbled again, shaking the walls, but Claire could feel the energy shifting. Fear was morphing into anger. "Mom! What do we do?" Ewan cried, his voice trembling like a candle flame in the wind. Claire felt a surge of chaos flood her mind. "We hold on. We remember." She squeezed her children tighter, feeling their small bodies trembling against her. Suddenly, the dark figure lunged forward, parting the shadows like a ragged curtain. It emerged with a sickly, pale grin that stretched too wide, revealing jagged teeth. It was more than a monster, it was a reflection of all the despair she had buried deep inside. "Ah," Claire had hissed, "don't you want to know why you really came back?" "What do you mean?" she snapped, brandishing the knife. "Back to the house," it whispered, its voice teasing. "Back to your past. You thought escaping was enough, but the truth is your fears never left." Eden let out a whimper, digging her nails into Claire's shirt. Claire's resolve, her defiance felt like sand slipping through her fingers as the figure edged closer, its form shifting and distorting in the dark light. "No," she breathed, realization dawning with every word the creature spoke. Her grandmother's stories weren't just tales, they were warnings. Her family's history was alive, and it clawed at her insides, hungry to be acknowledged. "Fight him, Mom!" Ewan shouted, panic rising like bile in her throat. Ewan's desperation ignited a spark in her heart. "We fight!" she yelled, her voice stronger now. "We won't be trapped by you." With that, Claire surged forward, knife raised high, and slashed at the darkness. The moment the blade met the air, a shockwave rippled through the room, causing the figure to stagger back, the laughter faltering. An almost tangible fear flickered in its eyes. "Your sacrifice will be your truth," it spat, the grin twitching as it glared back. "Will you face what should have stayed buried?" But just as Claire thought she gained the upper hand, the room started to twist and warp around them, the walls bending inward like a collapsing tunnel. Furniture began to float, and shadows danced around her like frenetic spirits. Were they coming to aid her or to pull her into a deeper darkness? "Claire!" Eden screamed, her voice slicing through the chaos. Tears streamed down her little face, illuminating the stark reality that faced them all. "Hold on to me!" Claire shouted, a fierce determination pooling within her as she tightened her grip on the knife and her children. "Mommy! What is happening?" Ewan cried, a note of panic ringing true. I don't know. Claire admitted, her heart racing as the figure began to dissolve into thin air, its laughter echoing like a banshee. But it was not gone, it was lurking, waiting to pounce at their weakness, and then, in an instant, everything fell silent. The chaos receded, leaving only the sound of her racing heart and her children's soft whimpers. The dim light flickered back to life, exposing the startling emptiness of the room. Is it over? Ewan whispered, yet in the refracted light, new shadows pulsed on the walls, shifting like dark tides. Laughter echoed faintly, not from beyond but deep within Claire's own mind, a sinister echo that sent her thoughts spiraling. What did we awaken? She thought, the realization dawning like a slow, freezing tide. Suddenly, a deep, familiar voice resonated in the air. Oh, Claire, this is only the beginning. A paralyzing chill enveloped her, and they all froze, staring wide-eyed at the whisper that wrapped around them. Claire's heart raced, knowing they had opened a door best left closed. What kind of horrors awaited beyond? The quiet chaos rolled back in, and she understood with dread they weren't out of danger yet, they were just getting started. What kind of sacrifices would it demand from them next? As she braced herself for the next wave of terror, the air thickened once more, leaving her with a haunting revelation that chilled her to the core. The shadows seemed to mock her resolve, swirling in the corners of the room, taunting her with whispered uncertainties. Claire's heart raced, a low drum echoing in the silence that now felt suffocating. Ewan clung to her leg, his small frame shaking. Eden's fingers were deep in Claire's shirt, anchoring her to the present as dread loomed, heavy and oppressive. Stay close, Ethan. We can't let it in. Claire whispered fiercely, even as her mind tinged with doubt. Just above a tremor, she thought she heard the walls reverberate with a response, an unsettling hum threading through the air like a warning. Do you feel that? Ewan's voice was barely above a whisper, his face pale against the flickering light. Feel what? Claire asked, not wanting to entertain his fear but knowing the truth gripped her harder at that moment. Like something is coming. He was right. The ground seemed to vibrate now, causing a sense of impending doom to weave itself through the fabric of the room. Mom. Eden's little voice cracked. What's wrong? Without answering, Claire's gaze darted around, searching for anything, any sign that could guide them out. She could almost taste the tension, the air crackling as if charged with electricity. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, swirling like angry spirits. The darkness loomed denser, swallowing the flickering light, transforming her home into a twisted nightmare. Shadows stretched across the walls, creeping closer. I want to let them take you. Claire shouted, brandishing the knife like a shield against the encroaching darkness. It felt useless now, a small spark in the face of an overwhelming storm. Then, just as quickly as it began, a piercing scream echoed through the room, almost a wail of agony that came from nowhere yet felt achingly familiar. It rippled through the walls, vibrating against Claire's bones. It was a sound that spoke of grief, of loss, the collective pain of generations. Get down! Claire barked, pulling her children close to the floor. A shiver ran down her spine as she shielded them, wishing she could protect them from haunting memories clawing their way back to the surface. Mom! Ewan yelled, a note of panic creeping in. The shadows drew closer, gathering like a heavy fog, swallowing everything in their path. Claire's grip tightened on the knife, her knuckles white. But then the whispers changed, morphing into a cacophony that filled her mind. You cannot escape, you brought us back. They hissed, voices overlapping, spinning out of control. Claire's breaths came in short bursts, her chest tightening with fear. What had she unleashed? No! She cried out. I want to let you have us. The knife glinted in the dim light as she spun, slashing through the darkness, desperate to sever the ties to her past. With each strike, the room warped. Images flickered in her mind of faces lost, of promises made long ago. It felt like a tapestry unraveling, the memories trying to pull them back in, away from the light. Mom, please. Eden screamed, her eyes wide with terror. Hold on. Find the light. Claire shouted, her mind racing. She saw UN's face, shadowed against the darkness, and a warmth flooded her with newfound determination. They had survived this long. They could survive together. In that instant, Claire felt a mental shift. Darkness recoiled in confusion as she braced for another wave of terror. The laughter returned, higher, more frantic, almost desperate. Something stirred within the shadows, something ancient and malicious. What next? Claire wondered, panic wrapping around her heart like a vice. Suddenly, memories began manifesting visually in the darkness, visions of her ancestors, faces twisted in anguish, offering up their own fears like sacrifices. Then a voice, deep and resonant, cut through the chaos. Face your truth, Claire. A thrill of horror spread through Claire as she pulled her children closer, shoulders slumping under the weight of their shared dread. In that crucial moment, the darkness inched forward, as if tasting their fear. Her thoughts whirled, the choice lay before them, as fragile as glass. What truth had they unleashed? As the shadows advanced, Claire felt the severity of the moment settle around them. She understood she had to confront her family's haunted past. Could she stand against it? Would she realize that sometimes, to fight the dark, you had to plunge into its depths? Just then, a sudden flicker of light broke through the gloom. Mom. We need you. UN's voice pulled her back to the present. And in that heartbeat, Claire knew it wasn't just her past she had to fight. It was their future. As she steeled herself to confront what lay ahead, the laughter crescendoed into a manic roar. What awaited them in the shadows, lurking just beyond their grasp? Would the truth free them or bind them further in chains? Claire's heart raced as she took in the looming shadows surrounding her, the weight of her family's past pressing against her skin. The room felt like a living entity, pulsating with dread and unspoken secrets. She looked down at her children, their faces pale and stricken with fear, but the spark of resolve ignited within her. Together, she whispered, her throat dry. We face this together. The shadows surged forward, creeping like dark tendrils hungry for despair. Claire tightened her grip on the knife, seeking strength from its cold surface. What do you want from us? She shouted, her voice echoing, challenging the darkness. You already know, it hissed, the voice a haunting blend of her own and something deeply foreign. You need to confront what you've kept hidden. I want to let you take them. Claire screamed, stepping forward to shield her children. Ewan trembled but squeezed her hand, finding strength in her defiance. In that instant, a memory surged through her, an image of her grandmother sitting by the fireplace, soft words spilling like honey. Fear is only powerful if you allow it control. Taking a steadying breath, Claire closed her eyes, inviting the memories to flow. She saw glimpses of laughter and grief, moments of her childhood intertwined with secrets never spoken. They weren't just burdens, they were threads woven into the fabric of who she was. Enough. The creature's voice screamed, slashing through her steering thoughts. You think you can escape the past? She struck forward with the knife. It cut through the space where the darkness coiled, producing a sound that shattered the echoes of fear. I'm not running anymore. Claire declared, her voice fueled by anger and untapped courage. You don't own us. The figure recoiled, surprise flashing through its refraction. The shadows hesitated, as if paralyzed by Claire's resolve. For the first time, she saw it. This was not just a monster. It was a lost part of herself, divided by choices and shaped by anger. With newfound clarity, she stepped into the light. I am Claire. I acknowledge my past, she declared, voice unwavering. I am not ashamed anymore. Lightning crackled outside, illuminating the chaos briefly, revealing faces woven from memories, lost souls from her family's history clamoring for recognition. But they weren't scary now. They were filled with longing. Mommy! Eden cried, pulling on her shirt as fear crept in again. Claire knelt, locking her gaze onto her children. "It's okay," she assured them. "They just want to be seen, just like we do." "Can we help?" Ewan asked, wide-eyed. "It's time to let them go," Claire whispered, gripping the knife, not as a weapon but as a bridge. She stepped closer, exposing her arms in a gesture of surrender and love. "What do you wish for?" Suddenly, the shadows shifted, swirling as if contemplating her offer. Claire felt an ache for every story locked away, every voice silenced through generations. Resolve coalesced within her chest, radiating warmth, and she understood that to bring peace, she had to let the light in. One by one, the figures began to form, their features emerging from the darkness, eyes glistening with unshed tears. The laughter transformed into soft whispers, echoing both sorrow and hope. In that moment, Claire felt their pain, their yearning, a desperate longing for release. "Thank you," they murmured, their voices harmonizing, entwining into a chorus of unity. The shadows recoiled once more, losing their grip, grasping at the light that enveloped Claire and her children. "You can be free," Claire urged. "Leave behind the sorrow, no more pain. You are loved, always." As if pulled by her words, they swarmed forward, swirling around her, creating a brilliance that illuminated the room. Claire felt pieces of her heart returning, threads of family weaving together, binding the past into the present, lifting the weight of decades off her shoulders. The last of the shadows ebbed away, silenced by a soft sigh of relief. The storm still raged outside, but inside, the atmosphere shifted, tranquility blossoming, dispelling fear. Like noon sunlight breaking through clouds. The knife slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor as Claire collapsed to her knees, breathless. She turned to her children, tears streaming down her face, a mixture of cleansing and joy. "Mommy, are we safe now?" Eden asked, her voice small and trembling. "Yes," Claire breathed, pulling them into her embrace. "We are safe." They huddled together, enveloped by warmth, breathing in every moment as if anchoring themselves against a tide that once threatened to drown them. The rain began to soften, pitter-pattering against the roof, a lullaby washing over the remnants of darker truths. Claire's heart thrummed with the rhythm of a new beginning. "Will you stay with us?" she whispered into the silence that spread around them. And deep within the shadows, she felt the answer, a gentle whispering promise wrapped in fading echoes. "Thank you, Claire." Together, they stepped forward, hand in hand, navigating through the new dawn, leaving the tempest behind. Shadows merged into light, creating a tapestry of hope, binding their hearts tightly as they stepped out into the world reborn. Claire smiled brightly, watching her children. A warmth enveloped them as sunlight broke, solidifying the bond of family, love conquering all, forever. Now, before you go, you need to subscribe to this channel immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us show everyone how much you love these tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Claire's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Support the channel and be part of our amazing community.